Hey, good afternoon, Aristo. 4
Hello, Rob.
p.m. your time.
Yes, and for you it's what, 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
On the last day of January, but this is the video for the first day of February, and I'm going to let you introduce whatever you choose to introduce.
Okay,
Nothing's
thank you.
prearranged, and you don't have any talking points.
I have nothing. I was really wondering what I'm going to... throughout this whole week, a lot of stuff was coming through. But usually I intend some kind of, or hope for some kind of synchronistic alignment with what you're saying during the week. And it is the new moon today, I believe. So we begin another lunar cycle that accentuates what was going on in the previous month, where essentially many of us were prompted in our lives to set aside secondary things and focus on primary things. To look into what really matters, to sit through and say, okay, I don't have time for this crap, put that aside, I need to focus on this stuff over here. Even though we may have been preoccupied by the other stuff. The more we focus on important things that really, as I said in the previous video, raise our passion, the more naturally raise our passion, even if they're challenging, the more events will conspire in our favor. Exactly. Was that a mosquito or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I got it.
There he goes. Discontinuity comes. So, the situation basically, even if your passion is challenged by something that seems negative, and if it feels negative, and it is negative, it still is something that is fuel for your passion. It's fuel for the fire of your passion. And we look at wood and it's dry and it's moldy or whatever, but unless you throw it into the fire and burn it, you are not going to get heat out of it. It's going to be useless, cut up in little pieces as it is. In the same way, seemingly negative events need to be processed. It's not an attack, even if it is intended as an attack. And pretending that things are positive in a new age type of manner, as we have said, is not going to help. I want to address something even more specifically now. I listened to your previous video about Heather and all of that stuff, and it's a very shaky issue because a lot of people, it's difficult to talk about, even though in principle it shouldn't be. The psychic, shall we say, energy around the issue is charged. And it's charged to the point that people cannot ground into themselves, I believe. And look at how simple it is. Basically, when you want to make a transition, you don't want to repeat the same mistakes of the past. But being afraid of taking a risk, isn't going to help either. So it's a matter that requires courage, and courage feeds passion, and passion feeds courage. It's a matter, basically, of understanding that if you're going to present a solution that demands people do what they do not want to do, then you are treading on slippery ground. You are treading on the ground of the past because many a well-meaning tyrant has begun to express their tyrannical ways in that manner by saying, look, we have to all get on the same page. We have to do as I say, and people believed in kings for that reason, because they needed one person to organize them. This was back in the day when civilization was different, when people were not in communication as they are today, when technology didn't allow and education didn't exist to the level that it does today, even though it's conditioned and all of that. Today we have opportunities to do things differently just by the way society is structured. Even though it's been perverted and whatever. The very psychopaths, what they were doing in conditioning us is essentially building a bridge to their own intended future. But it's a bridge nevertheless. It extends out from the past where all the villages were separate and fighting, and every little village head wanted to be the boss, and, divide and conquer and manipulation and slaughter on a small scale of bickering. Even though people basically wanted to get along and whatever, they were still so afraid that if anybody broke the taboos or the laws or the customs, even if those customs had nothing to do with reality, they were severely punished. And punishment builds up resentment, and resentment accumulates into retaliation. So all of these zones basically have led us to a position where we are in the middle of a bridge. Now, this bridge is going to some nasty place, but at the same time, we have been taught to build this bridge for the so-called elite. We're the ones who build it. They say we own the internet, we own this, no, the people of the world, creative people, built it. The think tank people who come up how to screw us, they're very, very few. They're functionaries, and they're going to be screwed if the elite have their way, etc., etc. But the point is, we've learned how to build bridges already, and we're being sidelined, blindsided, basically, to keep forgetting that we've learned how to do this. We're communicating in ways human beings have never communicated. And it's interesting that as soon as I logged on, somebody sent me some email, spam, I don't know what it was, and I've seen this elsewhere on my page, of the internet is in danger, they're going to shut it down. So whenever there seems to be a collective rise, that there are statistical, computers and all that seem to say people are communicating more than they used to about these issues. So let's threaten that we're going to shut it all down and freak them out now. Let's do something to shake it up. I looked at Dr. Mercola's site, talks about health issues, and he talked about, in the current newsletter, he had a thing about a thermograph of the human body and all of the emotional states, anger, happiness, love, anxiety, and all of these negative emotional states basically had a complete shutdown of the body's processes, of anything that generates heat and energy. Happiness and love, had an opening, and blood flows and life force flows and all of this, and passion, of course, too. But all of these other states shut everything down, and that shutdown starves the body, and thus diseases eventually are created. All of these diseases have an emotional basis, and including the repression of emotions. Because you can be in anxiety, your body can read anxiety, but you can pretend in your head that you're happy. And it's supposed to, according to New Age theory, program your body to be happy, but if you shut off the channels in order to, not create that connection and feel the feedback, then it doesn't. So the point is that one of the worst toxins, aside from, it is of course denial, the worst toxin, but it's also these negative states that are left unaddressed. So the reason we want to face these things is to address them and to heal them. So when we look at society as a whole, we can actually say, okay, this is crazy. I don't know what to do about this. But what you can do is look at your own person as a microcosm of society itself. Look at the processes of your personal life and how you deal with your issues, and how you succeed in dealing, and how you fail in dealing, and how your challenges are, and see that society as a whole is going to have to go through something similar. This is the process. You spoke about 5D, and that topic keeps rising up. And each time I say my own viewpoint, I say, well, let's clarify this. And let me make another attempt to re-clarify, as someone who's been involved in mystical processes and has had mystical experiences for 30 years. And I've known people who have had them, and one of the abilities you get is to be able to sense them in other people. And so it's not an in-my-head thing. I've also researched the traditions themselves, so it's not my imagination. I'm speaking from a point of view of a certain experience. 5D is a state of awareness. It's not a place. And when people take hallucinogenic drugs, they call it a trip. They journey somewhere. When shamans go do their vision quest, these people don't go anywhere. They change their frequency. They change their state of awareness. That feels like traveling somewhere, like being somewhere else. But you are not really somewhere else. Some people also talk about dimensions opening up. That is not somewhere else. When a flower is a bud, and then it blossoms into a flower, you're not talking about two different things. You're talking about the same flower in two different states. 5D is 3D opened up. So you have 2 more degrees of freedom in your awareness. Now, what does this mean? Many people think it means being in paradise. Yes, ideally it does when everything is healed. But if you opened up right now into 5D, you would go insane. Most people, 99% of the people, if they opened up right now into 5D, they would experience hell on earth because all the shit that nobody faces would be right in front of them. The ones who really want us to be in 5D right now are the psychopaths. They want us to open to 5D before we are prepared to open to 5D. So if you go and take LSD and dose somebody off the street with it without telling them what you're doing, especially in the city environment, they're going to have a psychotic break. Most likely. They will have a bad trip. So if you open up to 5D, you will realize just how shallow your New Age concept, I'm not speaking personally, of course, but generally, that someone will realize how shallow their New Age concept of love is when they are faced with the demons of hell in the proverbial etheric plane, in the dream time. Shamans go through a shitload of preparation to take a vision quest, to go into 4D, for example. 5D is like a fan opening up. 4D is like a little doorway into the state as we're dreaming and connecting that dreaming state into the waking state, so we're aware of the full spectrum of everything, of all the subtle forces, of what these forces represent, of our emotions. We experience our emotions personified as physical events directly. 5D is opening up to a hell of a lot more than that, to experiencing causality where we didn't think there was anything before. So if you're even in denial a little bit, the last thing you want is to go to 5D. And it's really funny how people who speak about 5D don't address 4D. They don't talk about let's move from 3 to 4D and see how it goes and move from 4D to 5D. Because it's become such a mentalized concept that, like you said, just kick them off over the other side and everything's going to be fine. Why would somebody do that? Why would somebody choose an easy solution when they're a logical person? These people are all,
brilliant people.
They're brilliant people, yes. Why would they do that? Because they find a cul-de-sac, a block, I can't go this way. Why? Because it demands sacrifice. That is the presentation.
Or risk.
Well, risk is the risk of sacrifice, essentially. Right. Basically, it's not that you got to give something up, but what happens when somebody comes and says, look, man, you've been talking too much, so we're going to kill you, or we're going to kill your family, or things like that. If they start harassing you, what are you going to do? And then you look at all the people around you, you're going to save us, and we're going to wait till you do that. So you're going to, and then you look at history of all these people that have sacrificed themselves for nothing, because we're still here. And you're wondering, is this what I want to do? So if somebody comes up and says, well, we're going to have solutions, but y'all are going to have to sacrifice yourselves. Or even if they say, I'm going to sacrifice myself, you follow me over the cliff, then in my opinion, we should be suspicious of that. Because at this point, the bridge we're creating is not going to go to the destination that the psychopaths wanted to go. So we're not going to use the same things that worked in the past or seemed to work, because they never worked, for this type of bridge. We're going to do it differently. It's still going to be a bridge, but it's going to be a different bridge. So on the one hand, I am not going to sacrifice myself, and I can't blame anybody who does it. But I will say that if you do find this block and you say, well, whatever the solution is, it's not going to be built on sacrifice. That's what Christianity did. And look where it ended up. How many corpses under the whole Jesuit thing, and before the Jesuits, the others, and this and that, or all religions. Here's another thing. Speaking of Christianity, that was a willing sacrifice. So the elite do not just want to kill us. That's one thing. When you create suffering, you create resentment, and you can use that resentment as a weapon. But if you create a willing sacrifice, some idiot who believes that they should give themselves over into pain and suffering and death for a higher cause, then you also have the manifest intent. There's a tradition that says the curse of a dying person is the strongest curse there is, or even the blessing. But usually it's a curse because they're in pain. So that kind of, when you offer your life willingly toward a cause, and if you have been deceived, then the person that's deceiving you has a big-ass resource. And so you have had hundreds of thousands of Christians between the death of Jesus and the Constantine Reformation. And most of these are buried under Rome today. Their bones are in the catacombs of Rome under the Vatican. And so whoever establishes themselves as the representative authority of their cause has access to their energy. Similar, and this is an Egyptian ritual. That's why they mummified the pharaohs. They mummified the pharaohs and they mummified the lamas in Tibet because they want to keep their energy, shall we say, their karmic influence, a kind of pattern of an etheric passion imprint that can be used and projected. And when you have all of these things, and when the elite create wars and base their banks on wars and suffering, the money they create is also infused. It's like creating money out of corpses. So although money is legitimate, the money we use is evil. So that distinction is something that the money we use that's printed by the banks today is evil because it's founded on suffering. When you buy a diamond for your girlfriend that's based on the blood of some slave in Africa that has died to drag that rock out of the earth, and whoever dares mine any kind of diamonds is killed by the elite, then that diamond that's supposed to be a symbol of love is actually a symbol of suffering and hell. People understand this when they talk about fur coats. You kill an animal and then to wear the fur, and then the woman goes around, and prances and, oh, look, I have a fur coat, and they torture these animals. Eating meat is one thing, but wearing fur coats when you don't have to, just as a status symbol, is something completely different. So people understand that, but when it comes to actually using products, like the cheap products from China, made from slave labor, when somebody creates something, their heart and soul, even if they hate what they're doing, then their hatred goes into that creation. So our civilization is saturated with suffering. That's why I say it's evil. And what are we going to do? We're not going to use it? No, we're going to actually draw. If you want to be in the fifth dimension, then you're going to have to start perceiving all of this. You're going to have to start perceiving the miasma, the suffering, the pain, the trauma at a collective level in everything in our society that's been engineered by these psychopaths. The foundation of it may be real. Money may be okay when it's pure and based on freedom. Clothing, when it's woven a certain way, or, it may be good and all of this. We don't have to run naked. Work isn't bad when people who do it are doing it for their passion. There's no great blessing than to have a piece of furniture made by an artisan who loves what they're doing. Or read a book written by an author who is passionate about the subject. You can feel that. Or listen to somebody who is passionate about their subject. It's inspiring. You can feel the life flow through. But we're encountering so many things that are debilitating, and every time we do this and we dampen our response to these things because it hurts. And we wonder why we're depressed, or why every time we're uplifted we get blown back down again. It's not just the psychopaths have to do very little right now. They can just, send a piece of news that scares us a little bit, and it's like an allergy. Your immune system is so suppressed that one little piece of pollen is going to trigger a response, a painful response. So in that sense, we can see that our society is in the same way. Our society is like this, and our own being is like this. So the last thing we want to do is jump into the fifth dimension, because the fifth dimension is the truth, or a greater version of the truth, so to speak. You want your eyes open, are you sure? Or do you want to open them up gradually and get used to each step? Do you want to avoid the shock? So, but as we do this, I have to say another thing. Nobody is my king. Will not recognize anybody as my king. I will not bow to anybody as the king. If a human being has resources and the capability for whatever reason to help, and they are making an effort, then I commend them. Even if my passion puts me along a slightly different path, I will still in some way support it if that is true. But using titles as a justification is not necessary. The fact is that hierarchies, as you said, are not really hierarchies as they were in the past. They're simply management systems. They're simply ways to organize, to communicate. I mean, technology is based on circuit boards, on assembly lines, on slave labor. We can eventually change that, but the whole thing is that at this point, it is what it is. And somebody like Heather, for example, may have been threatened, or may have seen that there's no way I can make the change myself. There's no way I can experience the change step by step, so maybe we have to do it another way. And there's one more thing before I close. A lot of people, this is almost like a relay race. It's very difficult to be in the public eye, and people hoping, for example, you and me to a much lesser degree, people do not say Ram is going to change the world or give us solutions. Ram is working with people he believes will help change the world. Aristo is just giving advice or expressing his opinion or whatever. But when somebody like Heather is actually doing something, then all eyes are on Heather. And I'm not just speaking about the psychopaths. I'm speaking about the hopes and fears and denials of everybody. So if somebody is basically psychically aware it's Heather, obviously is to a great extent, she's going to feel that pressure and it's going to affect her life. So many people will not have the stamina to remain in the public eye, for extended periods of, forever, or to carry it through. Or else they'll become a sacrifice. They'll break under the pressure and get crucified or whatever, or have an accident, or their health will be debilitated. So it may be also a relay race. Somebody brings it up to a certain point, somebody else picks it up, takes it to another point. Everybody who's come in the past, all these brilliant people have inspired us. They may not be able to continue, and they may not have the courage to admit this, that they need a vacation or something, or maybe they may not be able to have a vacation, but they need to internalize. So when somebody says, let's all go to the fifth dimension, they might really mean, let me just focus within and get my bearings here, because I can't help you all. I feel completely worthless. You've been in that state as well. Worthless and helpless and useless. It's like, no, man, that just means that you've been overwhelmed and you need to take a break. So we need to be good to ourselves, and all of this loving and unconditional love needs to be given to ourselves first. And it's not going to be something we have to try to do, because we're challenged to do it every step of the way. Every time we meet something that tells us, oh, here's a block, that's when we have the challenge of being loving and saying, okay, well, I'm going to take a break now. The world isn't going to blow up. It's not going to collapse. If grace exists, it's going to give me the time to be good to myself. If God is God, He's not going to hold it against me that I'm being good to myself, so long as my passion isn't compromised. And it's not. I can be passionate, relaxed, and I can be passionate as I'm moving forward. And that's up to me. But, that's where I believe grace is operating. We're the ones who are judging ourselves. We're the ones who are freaking out. We don't have the courage to say, well, this is all okay. It's all going to hell in a handbasket, but there is a process, and I can help the world by being true to myself. And a lot of people are going to say, okay, that means more denial. Fine, let them. It doesn't matter. They're going to feel more pressure. The feedback is going to give them a different story, and they're going to reevaluate. So, in that sense, we can trust the process, in my opinion. We can move toward this 5D awareness, but know that we're going to have to create the paradise in that space. And that means moving step by step from where we are now. I guess that's what I had to say. How much has this been about?
Not even 25 minutes yet.
Oh, really? I saw you looking back and forth, and
No, I was looking at the computer because I was looking up something that Peter Van Runt said. He said structure and hierarchy are two different things. Some people mistake structure for hierarchy in it just because there are titles involved.
Exactly. See, the psychopaths have taken everything that is useful And we're the ones who create these things. I mean, they haven't invented structure. We invented structure. Creative people who were well-meaning. I know this because I've interacted with psychopathic hierarchies and the institutional systems and stuff like that. They're not creative people. The ones who are at higher positions, who know more or less what's going on some level, are not creative people. They're there to carry the cause, to make sure that all the creative people are working for the psychopaths and are not doing something against them. But the creativity is what we need to discern from the deception. Money is not evil. It's a representation of the worth of the perceived worth of something. But it's a manifest representation. Our inner worth, when it's not manifest, it's really worthless to somebody in a material way. So if we can transform that inner worth into something material, and if we are given the resources to do so as an investment by all of society, I mean, that's where the financing comes in. If somebody says, I have a passion, then they should be able to have the wherewithal to realize that passion. And we're all biased by the propaganda that says all of these people are just doing their stupid things and, wasting money. Everybody's wasting it on stupid things. We all got to get in line. No, this whole wasting money is done on purpose. All of these things, money is given in such a way to convince people to waste it. To just frivolous things, or where people to the point that I was in America and money was taken away in Cleveland from the public school system and given over to build some football stadium. And everybody was, screw the kids. They had kids. Oh, screw the kids. I don't care. We're going to have football, and that's what we want. Yeah, and it was all, they just were out of their minds when they were in that frame of reference. And many people are. We can't, start screaming and bitching about those people. Because what we can do is remember when we were like that. And how the hell would we react? We all have some obsessive, you had Christianity. What would happen if some new ager came to you back in the 60s and, mentioned the goddess and the this and that, and Lucifer is a good guy, and I don't know what, But if we can remember that, as, well, I forgave that. Okay, I forgave that, and that means I have access to it. Now it knows. Now what I forgave is a part of me, and so it has complete empathy with what's going on. And that puts us in a scary position because it almost makes it seem that there are no solutions because, well, I was hopeless. I was hopeless until something happened and brought me to a certain point. And we can't control that, We feel uncertain. Well, how do I control everybody's awakening? Well, you can, and you shouldn't. Nobody controlled your awakening, but you had a certain trigger because of who you are. What you can do is help remove the fears and uncertainties, because what everybody really, really fears, people would wake up easily if they didn't feel that, if they felt it was worth it. If you're going to die anyways, you might as well do so rather than jumping into the fire yourself and dying in some horrible death as a sacrifice. Or a sacrifice where everybody else laughs at you, or sacrificing yourself for no reason. Many, many people have been participating, shall we say, in past life memories of being sacrifices for no good reason, or being deceived into being sacrificed. Humanity is like a rape victim. All of it's very, very suspicious about anything. And rape victims are suspicious about, obviously anybody who approaches them, whatever their intentions are. And so somebody who wants to keep the rape victim screwed is going to constantly keep them afraid. And we realize we're in this position. So we are moving our creativity to prioritize these issues is something very important, because everything else is going to be, if it's not revealed now, it's going to be revealed as things go along, is irrelevant. Out of 100 things, we're going to realize that 99% of them are irrelevant. Somebody even mentioned something on Alex Jones that the one good thing about all of these crisis things in the United States is that people are actually not spending money on what they don't need. They're learning to focus on what they really need and learning to do without things that they have been brainwashed to desire. And so people aren't necessarily moving at this stage, although some people are very, very poor and suffering. But many people are in the position where they can say, shit, I've been wasting my time and my money and my everything on all of this crap I never really needed. And now of course you have, and that extra money basically was supposed to go to your true passion. And since that was snuffed out, you would have had to buy something and do something, because we buy things. How do women or men say, let's go shopping? Oh, I'm freaked out today. I feel stressed. I want to shop. I want to spend this energy that comes from everybody suffering and just give it and feel that energetic circulation, and so I can calm down and not feel my anxiety, my quiet desperation. So we can't afford that anymore. It's over. I mean, the cries of the people in the third world are like, you either are going to get off your asses and help us, or, because we're completely screwed, or else you're going to be like us. It's going to happen to you. So they're not like, they don't have the strength to stand up. They have the strength at most to survive. In some of these countries, there isn't the strength to actually stand up and creatively do something. Even if they were given a little bit more than they have, all these solutions came out of Africa. Financial solutions, energy solutions, scientific solutions. India, Africa, all of these countries, people were rising up and saying, well, here's a solution. And they were stomped back down again. So our job in countries that have actually fed off of the suffering of others in collusion with psychopaths up to this point is to seek the redemption by facing the issues in our personal lives in order to gain the resources to extend that into the collective situation. I believe we can do this. And I believe that things are getting better, because from what I've observed as time went on, even on your channel, people are learning to, even if some of them have tired out, like Heather, and wants to probably pass the relay, others are learning to step up. And they may be doubting and wondering, am I able to do this? Step up in their own way, not necessarily here or there, because we learn from the mistakes of the ones who went previous to us. And we also learn to read their motives as we learn to read our own motives, and thus we can learn to read the motives of all these other people who are still ambiguous. It can be done, and I believe that intention in our hearts along with our passion is important. So now I think we hit the 30-minute mark.
We're almost 33 now.
Okay, that's a good number. It's 4:33 over here about, so I think we can call it a day.
Okay.
Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you again, and look forward to next week's conversation. And thank
So
you
do
for
I.
all that you share and do.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Namaste.